Thank you. Good evening. My name is Michael Casey. I'm the editor of your Harlow. And so what else for? I'll take it. 2019 we're hosting the general election hustings here. And we thought with these being all-out elections, first time since 2002, it'd be a good opportunity to have another question time here. So I've got about 14 questions. I'm going to play it by ear. I'm not a natural chair. We are filming this, etc. So I'm not sure about the housekeeping bit about just that way. Yes. Straight into the church sanctuary. So there's that, the doors there, I think out to the sports fields there. So there's that bit. We have six leaders of their groups here this evening. What I'm first going to do is give them about 90 seconds just to say, assume nothing, so just in case somebody's never been here before, doesn't know the candidates, so give them 90 seconds on why you may want to consider people, maybe who are looking in, etc., may want to vote for there. So I'm going to chair like this. I've got questions, I've got sort of rough. If people aren't here, then I'll just read out the question. If people aren't here, they can read out the question. Yes?
Could the candidates stand up when they're saying they're not?
I shall certainly request that. And if you can't hear, again, just shout out. You're okay at the back? Can we hear at the back? Yes, we're okay. And the microphone should be on, and we should be sharing a microphone. So the first person I'm going to ask about why you may want to consider voting for them is Dan Swords, the Conservatives.
Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. And this is, as you've heard, the biggest and I believe the most important council elections that Harlow has had in a generation, because it genuinely will decide the future of our town. That being, there are only two outcomes from this election. Either Harlow Labour come back in to run the council, or the Harlow Conservatives continue to run the council, and I believe they are two very different futures. Because for the best part of 50 years, we've had the Harlow Labour Party running the council, increasing council tax year on year, allowing a huge backlog in council housing repairs to build up, allowing London councils to place their residents in our town at our residents' expense, allowing our great town centre to decline, and indeed, in their stylish finale, being named the worst council in Essex during the pandemic. Compare that and contrast that with the last 3 years, where we've just been shortlisted under the Harlow Conservatives as the most improved council in England. We've frozen council tax year on year. We cleared the backlog in council housing repairs. We made a dramatic overhaul to ensure Harlow homes are for Harlow people. We stopped Newham and we're rebuilding the town centre with the hundreds of millions of pounds that we have secured. So, as I said, this is the biggest and most important council election in decades. There are only two choices. There is one party that, frankly, I wouldn't trust to run a bath, let alone a town, and there is another that's rebuilding our town and taking us forward.
I'd like to ask Chris Libbs, Labour, to now stand up. Chris has got a bit of a croaky voice tonight, so please bear with him.
Do this short impression of local politics. Thank you, and actually really thank you to you, Michael, for organising these hustings. I think quite often local government is treated like the poor relation to national government, and I'm not just making a cheap reference to the 14 years of cuts that Harlow Council have actually faced. The question you ask is why should you vote Labour at these local elections? Well, here's something that you all know. These local elections aren't about one person. This is a presidential election. So whether you hate me, whether you like me, whether you tolerate me, I want to vote Labour because actually we've got 33 excellent candidates across the town, 33 community champions who are ready to serve their community as best that they can as part of the United Labour Party, a party that shown over the last 3 years that we work together and we put the needs of the town ahead of party political scoring. A group that have a plan for our town, a plan that means that we're going to put local Harlow businesses and champion local Harlow businesses. A plan that means we're going to actually bring back that stable financial control to Harlow Council, which is what we had when we were in power before. And a council which will get the basics right. And what I mean by getting the basics right is putting the residents of Harlow first. Let's be honest, it's time for change. It's time for change locally, it's time for change nationally. And I'm so looking forward to a Labour-led council in Harlow working with the next Labour government to ensure we get, our town gets, the investment that it deserves.
Of the Greens for her 90 seconds, not 1 minute.
Gosh, this isn't very good one. Don't start timing. I know you like your work on the dot. Let's get going. Okay. So we've heard from Dan, we've heard from Chris. 8 minutes in, and already the boys are fighting.
Yeah.
I think what I find as a Green Party, what we need to say is, firstly, I would want, I think it's this one. Can you hear that? You can hear that? Okay, so I'll hold it up here. Would you stop in the clock?
I am stopping the clock.
Right, okay. Right. So they can hear that? Can you? Thank you. Did everyone else hear it? Good. Okay, so we've had the boys fighting. That has to stop. As Chris says, it's time for change, and it is. And I think that change is green. I've lived in this town for 43 years, not born and bred, but I've lived in this town for a number of years. I have seen the decline. When I came here, Harlow had holiday play schemes. They had a swimming pool with a slide that made you feel as if you'd done 5 rounds of Frank Bruno as you come out. We had Harlow ski, and we had the Alp, didn't we? All things that were good for this town. There's a lot of things here that we've got hope with. And the hope comes from our youth. And we have to invest in our youth. The problem we have is that Harlow always has a low turnout of voters. So we've got to get that 75% who choose not to vote. That's 3 out of 4 people who choose not to vote. They can vote for the blue, they can vote for the red, they can vote whatever. But give Green a chance. That's all I'm saying. I've lived an experience of being in a system which is really confusing when you just need a helping hand. The Green Party do oppose austerity and propose a much fairer taxation system where the wealthy are taxed instead of being allowed to squirrel away millions in offshore bank accounts. We wish to work with a community that cares. And I know people of Harlow. I know they have passion about Harlow. And the Green Party has compassion. And we can work together to make this the town that we all love and know it can be. Thank you.
I now introduce Nicholas Taylor, Harlow Alliance Party.
Good evening, ladies. Can you hear me? Yeah, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, my name's Nick Taylor. I sat down in 2017 with 6 other residents who were all concerned about the way that Harlow Council was being run. Basically by a council that wasn't informing residents about what was going on in their area, wasn't consulting with residents, and wasn't actually engaging with the residents at all. We subsequently set up the Harlow Alliance Party. We held our first meeting in 2018 to discuss the Harlow local plan, which was the Labour Party's. And when asked, the Labour councillor who was there, the late Danny Person, was asked why residents weren't consulted, and he said it wouldn't have mattered. And from that, the party has grown, basically. We feel that actually the council is not listening to people these days. Subsequent to that meeting, the residents of Bushycroft were basically misled by the council about building houses on allotments. More recently, the Conservative Council have ignored the 6,000 people that actually petitioned against the river crossing. And more recently, this week, I'm sorry to say that Councillor Jones sitting next to me recently read the missing of the public when he said that nobody in Band 4 had been housed for the last 5 years. But in fact, the council's own document shows that over 50 residents have been housed in the last 2 years. We need a council which does not mislead the public, that consults with the public at every stage about where people work and live. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I ask Will Tennyson, Liberal Democrats?
Hey everyone, thank you for coming today. So I've had the pleasure of living in Harlow my entire life. My father before that also lived in Harlow his entire life. And my grandfather moved to the town to help build houses when it was just a few streets on the edge of being a new town. During that time, Harlow's sadly fallen behind in Essex. With just 2 parties in power since 2008, crime is up 60% than the county average. We are the second most deprived town in Essex, and we have the highest level of child poverty in Essex as well. This has come from your 2 choices that you were told earlier you had, either Labour or the Conservatives. I'm here to say, maybe that's not working. Maybe it's time to look at the statistics that are coming out of this and go, it's time for a change. Since 2008, you've had one choice. Soon enough, you're going to get 3 votes in the local election. Maybe it's time to not use those the way that you've done before. If you're ready for a change, consider voting with them. Thank you.
And finally, Mark Goff, UKIP.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for coming. I'd like to thank Michael very much for organising this evening. Back in 2014, there was a small new party put together in this town. And sure enough, when the local election came along, they won it. That party was UKIP. People for the last 10 years and more have been looking for opportunities other than the 2 old, tired opportunities that they have had for donkey's years. Here in Harlow, UKIP is now back. We have a number of long-standing issues in this town that have just not been tackled properly. And many of those issues come from the fact that we are badly let down by Essex County Council. I'm sure there's not very many people in the town who would argue all we need to do is look at potholes. It's time to stand up and get Essex County Council delivering to the people of Harlow for the council tax they pay. Furthermore, there are plenty of issues that this town hasn't tackled for a long time. Things like high council tax, poor services, poor environment, and not least, parking in our estates. Thank you.
I've got about 40 questions. Some people may be here, some may be not. So if, and I may just crack on because we're already on 15 to 20 minutes. And I'll give this. Is Tony Johnson here? Yes, Tony. Do you have any questions? Do you want to read it out, or will I just crack on and read it out for you? Okay, thank you. And we've got some similar to do a town centre regeneration. And I'm going to ask Councillor Swords, Dan Swords to answer this question first. Town centre regeneration. Town centre regeneration is such a massive issue at this election. So if you win the election, how will you continue or actually deliver it? Town centre regeneration.
Well, absolutely, I entirely agree. It's the biggest issue at this election, without a shadow of a doubt, which is why I think it's absolutely so bizarre that the Labour Party's plan that they spoke of mentions not one word about it. They've got 5 missions, none of them about the town centre. Contrast that, of course, with with the Harlow Conservatives, who have in the last 2 years alone secured over £100 million from the government to rebuild the town centre. The work is now starting. A number of schemes come underway with construction work getting out of the ground. We've set up the Harlow Regeneration Partnership with one of the biggest developers in the country. I can assure you now, should the council change hands, they will be out of this town quicker than they came in. And of course it is an absolute sign of what happened under the previous council. I mean, Yasmin spoke of being here for 43 years. Nearly all of those were under a Labour council. We had once upon a time the best town centre in Essex, which done nothing under the Labour council but declined. In fact, in 2020, their last year of running the council, they lost out on a bid from the government for £10.4 million because, and I quote, it did not meet basic value for money in its against the criteria. So there you are. You have Harlow Conservatives who have secured hundreds of millions of pounds to rebuild our town, over 100 million towards the town centre. We've secured planning permission for all of those schemes. The only way now to see those through is to ensure that we continue with the Harlow Conservatives running the council.
Okay, Chris, would you like to... I think one of the lives of regeneration was going to run out of town and come to power. So we'd like to respond to A, the question. Could he even they are? And B, what's your mission?
And thank you, Tony, for your question. So ultimately, the issues that you've described in the town centre aren't solely an issue faced by Harlow, and actually we see across the country town centres like Harlow turning into ghost towns. My view is that this is absolutely an effect of 14 years of a Tory government. Haven't invested in towns like Harlow, haven't invested in councils like Harlow Council. And actually, we're finally starting to see some money come into Harlow. There may be a general election on the horizon, but some of that funding was secured by the last Labour administration. I'm proud to say that actually the last Labour administration worked very hard to look at the regeneration of many things across the town, including the Harlow Rugby Club, the Enterprise Zone, Cow Park, and as I said, we actually got the first £20 million worth of the funding for regeneration of our town centre. If you're telling me a developer is not going to seek development opportunities in Harlow because it's a Labour council, it's just nonsense, isn't it? That would mean that...
Finish the question, please.
It's clearly not the case. Absolutely, we look at accelerating the school regeneration, and also I think actually the Harlow Alliance party candidate.
We can't hear you.
Sorry, I'm not really croaky voice. I think the Harlow Alliance party candidate made a really valid point earlier actually about the importance of ensuring that we actually we should be putting residents for developers, and actually we should be allowing developers. Absolutely, we want to put social housing at the heart of any new development. We've said that in our plan. And please name one redevelopment project that's finished for the last 20 years. I'm not seeing one.
Okay, what I'm going to do is go through each person individually, and then after each question, mix and match. It won't be council thoughts every time, and then I'll look for a response. So I'll probably need quicker answers here. Stand up. Yeah, and if you stand up, project.
I am standing up.
Yeah, you're here all week.
On the stage speaking, yeah, that's it, speaking in
Okay,
I know that, right. Okay, regeneration. I went to the meeting actually, they call it Developmental Management Committee meeting, which actually, so you and I know is planning meeting. So, this £19.3 million scheme was approved. So I get confused with all these numbers. So Dan's talking about trillions and millions and gazillions of pounds. So I don't understand all this money, because I just saw 19.3. And I don't know where it's coming from or whatever, if it's secured, if it's really here or not here. But anyway, we're talking about regeneration. Now, funny enough, not too far from the playhouse where this new regeneration is going on, in 2001, the then MP said that the foyer of Acacia House is part of the crucial regeneration of our town. This foyer stands with the railway station, the new bus station, the town centre, South redevelopment, as testament that we are renewing and improving our town. So they are. So here we are, fast forward a few more years now. Here we have this new regeneration. It's going on all over again. So what they've done though, they spent £1 million knocking down Acacia House. Well, sorry, you bought it for £1 million. I'm sorry. So do you want to share the night? Just asking. They bought it for £1 million, knocked it down. That housed 116 people. So they're now going to put 47 flats in its place. Now, this will not be social housing. What we need in this town, and what it was built on, as Will said, social housing. People came into Harlow, they built social housing. Not affordable housing, which is 20% below the market rate, but social housing.
Okay.
That's what we need in the regeneration.
Okay, thank you very much. Nicholas Taylor, and also stress one of the words that Tony has used, I think, about delivery. Okay, so about delivery, what can you deliver?
Yes, well, I'll just make the point first of all that we think that much of the money that's been obtained from the government, i.e. spending £9 million on the new bus station, is a complete waste of money.
Yeah.
Basically, the present bus station has never been maintained properly since it was built just 19 years ago.
Exactly.
There's no evidence that more people will get on the bus as a result of this new super duper bus station.
Yeah.
We also think that spending £20 million on the cultural square is also a waste of money, simply because it will still leave us with a theatre that is one of the smallest in the region, and a music centre which is somewhere like a capacity of 300 people. That money could have been spent elsewhere. It's no good looking back because it's actually history now. What we need to do is to learn the mistakes from history. They're proposing now to actually pave over Boardwalk, and that's been done about 4 times, at least in my memory. It's never worked properly. The idea of having loads of trees and a winding path up Boardwalk has been tried in many, many shopping centres and does nothing to increase the number of people living or working in the area or shopping in the area. Same goes for Market Square. 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago, £272,000 was spent on Market Square. More recently, nearly £1 million on Cross Street and other works. If you look at the flower beds at Cross Street now, none of them are being maintained. And there's no evidence that there's not only in the future to maintain all these hundreds of trees, flower beds, etc. This will do nothing to increase the flow of people coming into Harlow. We need to be more radical, more visionary in the things that come forward. We can learn from the lesson in the past, but we need to be much bigger in our vision in the future.
Thank you.
I feel like every couple of years we come back and we have another conversation about the regeneration plan that's being proposed. It seems that in all that time though, we've never actually had a proper regeneration happen. These plans that come up always seem to be focused around Market Square. Despite the amount of effort and the amount of plastic plant pots that have been put up there over the years, it's never managed to gravitate anyone to actually go down into that area. We have an issue now where, as we said, there is a limited number of housing in Harlow. That feels like a really good opportunity. If we could build some more social housing around the town centre, make it a hub for people to go to, make sure there's things to do in the evening, so it's a safe space. I'm not sure if you've been down the town centre late at night, it's not necessarily the nicest place to be, but it's tackling some of those problems, making it accessible, making it safe, making it a place where people want to go, will start that plan and bring people back in and regenerate the town. I think it's important that we consider what we might have to say goodbye to in able to look forward to the future. And maybe that means that there are parts of the town that don't get the regeneration that other parts would. That's the reality. The town centre has shrunk. It's not the same shopping town that it was back when I was young and even years before then. And we need to be reactive to that. And this is the opportunity. Making another regeneration plan won't necessarily do anything. anybody could, any one of the people that wins in the next upcoming election will be able to find a developer to do that plan. Do they have the vision to go with it though? That's the question I'm asking today.
Well, actually, it's a very rare occurrence that I actually find myself agreeing with a Liberal Democrat. I mean, the biggest issue with our town centre and regeneration is, I was on the council in 2000 to 2004, 2008 to 2012, and we had regeneration plan after regeneration plan after developer, and this was going to happen. Then we got massive lovely red plant pots in the town, in the market square. Then we got chessboards and blinking table tennis tables. Honestly, is it just an excuse to waste people's money on things that are just not going to happen and just not useful to people? I mean, we've had a town centre that at night, as Will's just said, has died a death. We need to rebuild our town centre to get people out there at night so that we actually have a viable, sensible town centre again. And that doesn't mean wasting money, it means being sensible. And I tell you what, how about we consult with the people of Harlow on some of this?
I was just going to say that, if you listen to the people.
Let's actually consult with the people of Harlow about it. Because at the end of the day, they're the ones that we want to use it. Why are we wasting money without consulting them? Let's start talking to people, eh?
Tony, you've heard from everybody. What do you think so far? Any reflections?
I think the time for planning and feasibility is over. It's time for delivery now. I'm 57, I've lived in this town 50 years. I want to sit before I retire. So, all of it. Please, let's not with it.
Brilliant, thank you very much. Somebody else had a similar question. I just wanted feedback on what you've heard. Mandy?
Mine was more to do with people's specific intentions as an elected Harlow councillor. In terms of a general response to what I've heard, regeneration, when half our town centre is literally falling apart and about to fall on people's heads, is not dealing with the basics, with the very basics in terms of public safety. However, Michael, with your permission, I would like to just ask the question that I had.
Yeah, it might be rhetorical, but I need to move on.
Okay. So, as a Harlow councillor, because not all of you are going to be heading under administration, as a Harlow councillor, what would be your priorities for the first 100 days following the election on May the 2nd? Thank you.
Yeah, I'll just give it two priorities very quickly, and I'll go back to the list, but then this will be no longer than 1 minute for us.
Well, the first thing, of course, is to, as Tony said, get on and spend the over £100 million that we've secured. Those regeneration schemes, whether it's Market Square, Broadwalk, the bus station, Terminus Street, so on and so forth, which are coming out of the ground now. And of course, to trust anyone on this panel to spend that money, you would expect them to know how much money there is and what it can actually be spent on, which none of them do. I mean, Chris couldn't even name who the council's development partner is. So it would be getting on with that and continuing the plan that we're enrolling, because tomorrow I'm presenting to become the most improved council in England.
Say that we don't know.
Okay.
I think say things like that.
Well, right, well, thank you. Who's the developer? Who's the developer partner? Yeah.
I'm sorry?
Here.
That's it, I don't know what they do.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Chair.
Oh,
yes, sorry. And I'm delighted that you've asked this question actually, because I would like to announce publicly that Labour has got a 100-day plan for Harlow. First thing we want to do is stabilise Harlow's finances and tackle the issue of the £10.8 million black hole that we're going to inherit. The second thing, by meeting with the CEO and the 151 officer at the council, the second thing we want to do is actually deliver 100 new parking spaces across our town. And the final thing, And the final thing I want to do actually is build on the wonderful work that actually our outgoing MP Rob Harlow has done, and actually look at how we can bring more apprenticeships into the task, because let's be honest, I want to actually look at how we as Harlow Council and HCS can actually support the work that he's done, and I've actually meeting with Harlow and college today to actually get more apprenticeships so the next generation of Harlow people can aspire to have some of these jobs that we really need in the council and in HCS, but also on a wider level as well as the town.
Yeah, I'd like to do proper due diligence on the books. I'll find out what's been going on with the money. I'll be finding out which developers have been promised work, if there's any relations, if there's anything that should be come out into the open. I would just really like to know, have a real dig down into what's been going on with our council and with our money.
Our first two priorities, obviously we wouldn't be controlling the council, but the two things we would do is to valuably look at the way that the council allocates its accommodation, because it needs valuable change, not just tinkering about that's been done recently. As a former housing manager, I know only too well, and assisting in Harlow, does not work for the majority of tenants or residents. And secondly, also to promote the whole question of having area forums where people can come together in each neighbourhood, like tonight, like we've done in the past, when there was area committees, where there will be hundreds of residents turning up to 7 committees that were held across the town on a regular basis. That will be my two priorities.
Two priorities. First one, housing. The Dems have a very ambitious but positive housing target, national housing target. That's not just around building homes, but community hubs and homes for people in those community hubs. Additionally, I also want to tackle sort of antisocial behaviour. I think that's quite a big one, and that comes back to sort of early intervention and kind of providing resources for individuals that turn to crime at a young age and making sure there's somewhere safe for them to go, where they can pull back kind of to the right side, and then hopefully that's going to eliminate a lot of the issues that come from that later in life. But starting those schemes for young people, I think is really important.
Finally, Mark.
Number one is obviously keep control of finances, trying to get the council tax down. Number two is looking at parking across the town, because obviously if Labour seriously think 100 parking spaces is enough to fix the parking problems in this town, they need to wake up. Not only that, but we also have a situation where we have an awful lot of industrial vans parking in our estates. That's causing far more problems than parking, and it needs a sensible tackle. Back to, I think, a fairly similar one to other people. I think housing needs to be looked at properly in terms of the fact that we are building an awful lot of properties that are completely unaffordable to people in Harlow who live on the average wage of £26,000. If they think a 250 grand flat is affordable to someone on an average wage of £26,000, it's time we woke up. Because what we need to be doing is exactly what UKIP said in the 2015 general election manifesto. It's time to build some quality, modular housing that's affordable to people and that you can now get a sensible mortgage on, so people have got somewhere to live. Thank you.
We're now going to go on to crime. David Foreman sent me a question, but I'll just read out one of the questions, David, is that all?
I'll read out, don't I?
Fantastic. It's the one on fight against drugs and violence.
Good evening, councillors, respectable councillors, ladies, gentlemen, and non-binary. 2022, yes, it's violence and the vulnerability unit set up by the Basin Crime Commissioner, published survey findings of a listening project conducted in 7 Essex districts, which revealed that in Harlow, the biggest concern for young people regarding youth violence was drugs. It also highlighted that Harlow was the only district in Essex where drugs was the main top answer, and it was also 5 times more common than Harlow's next answer of games. Consequently, what will your party do to improve the fight against drugs and the violence that accompanies their distribution? Thank you.
Chris Vince.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, David, for his
Can you stand up, please, so we can see you talk?
question, actually. I think it's fair to say probably knocking on doors in Harlow pretty much every day, and not just at election time. And the issue of antisocial behaviour, and much of that is related to drugs, is one that comes up probably more often than many. And obviously we as a council need to work closely with the local police, the local BCSOs to actually tackle this issue and provide that intelligence. Obviously I'm pleased that they've nationally committed to 13,000 community police officers. Our role as a Labour-led council will be to argue with that next Labour government to ensure we get as many of those, we can't get more, but as many of those police officers we can here in Harlow. I think as well, you won't be too surprised to hear me say this as a former teacher, but actually tackling this issue does come down to education as well, and actually the cuts that I think that have come across the cuts to youth services across Essex will be part of that as well, and actually where there's something that we need to also recognise. I'm delighted that the last Labour administration introduced community safety teams at Harlow. We need to make sure that they're going out in those communities, working with the communities, and understanding the challenges those communities face. I think the problem is that they're happening, it's not just about problems in the big, it's about policing communities actually actually working with communities and actually getting into schools and actually working with young people in their lives. I see some really good work done by the community safety team and the local community policing team. The example I give all the time is that there was a group of young people who was at the Change and Rise project and they handed around a button off and every kid took the button off and the police was like, understand. It was a really powerful thing to do, so I think education is where it's best. There's a lot of time, so
Okay.
it's a big issue that I'm doing, isn't it?
Yeah, thanks for that question. I think there's really two things that we need to do. Sorry, can you not hear? Yeah, you are. Basically, if you look at the council, the Conservative rag that came around earlier this year, you'll see that there's a whole issue about protecting our communities. And it talks about working with the police and war police officers and all that sort of stuff. All great stuff. But none of them touch actually on the causes of all of this and what interventions can be made to stop this sort of action, particularly from schools and young guys and ladies that are out on our streets at night. So we need to look at the causes and try to mitigate those issues. Secondly, also note from the council's Harlow Times that the council actually evicted 124 people for non-payment rent. Doesn't appear that they evicted anybody for causing antisocial behaviour. Now, I know as a former housing manager, and I've dealt with many tough people using antisocial behaviour. When they know you're in business, that you're going to be evicted, 99% of those cases stopped. We rarely had to go to court. On the odd occasion we did. But the fact is, if you're a council tenant and your sons and daughters or you are dealing with drugs, etc., you should be evicted. And people should know that. And that message gets around. So those are the two things that we would tackle. It's those that are doing antisocial behaviour as tenants and also looking at the causes of antisocial behaviour. Thank you.
So I mentioned previously about how social behaviour is one of the top priorities of the Dems. I think we need to first understand the reasons why people are going into drugs. A lot of the time it's going to be poverty, it's going to be not having a community of people around them, feeling pushed into it, feeling pressured into it. So I think trying to understand the causes of that, addressing some of those problems, whether it's with affordable housing, with those youth community services. By the time somebody leaves full-time education, you've missed your best opportunity to turn them away from that life. And so that's why the early intervention is so important. And I think there's organisations at the moment such as Rainbow Services that run an amazing workshop where they take people outside of sort of educational settings and get them practicing trade. And I think that's the kind of thing where people can feel like they're adding a little bit of value to their community, reach out to some of those things, and that's the kind of thing that we should try and do for younger generations to kind of really tackle those issues. Community policing is obviously priceless. You know, it is undeniable what it does, and I think we need as much of that as possible. And I would look to bring as much of that into Harlow as we physically can, despite the cuts that we made to policing over recent years.
Without a shadow of a doubt, antisocial behaviour is a huge issue facing the town. There is some good news. Thanks to the work that the council and the police have done over the past year, antisocial behaviour is down 35% in Harlow, but there is still an awful long way to go, which is why, as a council, we're making concrete action to really crack down on these things. So we've actually opened a joint community safety hub between the police and the council's community safety team, with one CCTV centre to feed in the enormous increase in CCTV that we've rolled out across the town, which I should add, of course, that our Labour friends voted against us doing. We've put CCTV into every underpass, hundreds of more cameras. We're now investing significantly into our community safety team, put more boots on the ground from the council's point of view. We've coming to Nick's point, we've just also further strengthened our hand with the council's tenancy agreement between the council and its tenants to really crack down on antisocial behaviour in our council properties. So it's concrete action we're taking to deal with the issue.
I think the biggest issue we actually have in dealing with antisocial behaviour and drugs is twofold. Number one, we have, for me, a police and crime commissioner who lives in Cloud Cuckoo Land. He doesn't seem to realise that actually what the people want when it comes to police is they want to see them out on the beat, preventing crime. They do not want to see them stuck in an office filling in flipping forms. Number two, I think until we actually tackle the fact that just up the road we have a constabulary called Metropolitan Police. Here in Essex, when we take on new police, they come here, they train for a couple of years, and then they think, oh, just up the road, I can get 16 grand more for a London waiting and go and work in Metropolitan Police. So we end up here in Essex with a big problem in that we have a lack of experience with our police officers. And that's something that needs to be tackled on a national level, not just at a local level. Because until we start doing something about making sure that here in the home counties, we have some way of stopping police officers going to the Met or give them some incentive to stay in Essex, they're not going to.
So we're talking about antisocial behaviour, which is defined as someone acting in a manner that causes or is likely to cause harassment, alarm or distress to one or more people not living in the same house as the perpetrator. In February 2024, 247 crimes were reported. Antisocial behaviour, there was 26 crimes. Violence and sexual offences, 95. I agree that antisocial behaviour is bad and something does need to be done about it. Nobody wants a motorbike going around. Can we turn that off?
Apologies.
Oh, that's all right. Take it. Nobody wants a motorbikes running around the back of their houses, so they put those silly gates in to stop that happening. But what we have, I think, is far more important that we need to be dealing with here, is the violence and sexual offences which are not being solved. The rate for solving them is just very, very low. So it's like a distraction. Yes, it needs to be done, but there's other things that are far more important that we need to be looking at in parallel. I've taken on board the fact that we was at a meeting, there's a lot of you here tonight who are at the meeting at the Stowe on Monday night. And they are, as a community, they're trying to do something very, very positive within that area. There's had a lot of bad press, and people are saying things about the area who don't even live there. So the people who live there are doing something about it, and that's what we would be doing in the Green Party. We would be welcoming dialogue with the community as to how we can fix things within their community.
These are just going to be snapshots of definitions issue, because we're now on 47 minutes. And I know Colleen's hand's up down there. So Colleen, would you like to say something? Yep. Is this a question relating to the subject we just got? Because I've already got a question. Is this, and what, because we've already got people who've got some. Crack on, Colleen, see what happens.
When I moved into Harlow in the 1950s, from the 1950s until the late 1970s, it was the most beautiful town. Kept in immaculate order by Harlow Development Corporation. Then it's handed over to Labour Council. And we've had over 15 years of Labour Council in Harlow.
Can we have a question?
So your question is?
When I was champion for Labour, it's my job as that to inspect the neighbourhoods of Harlow. When I began inspecting the park, I was shocked by what I found, by the appalling damage and neglect.
Can we have a question?
Question is?
What will all the candidates do in practice, and where will they get the money from? How will they finance their plan to improve this terrible neglect? And I'd particularly like to ask the Labour candidate to answer that, because he's
What we're going to crack on with Chris, and then we're going to crack on to the next question, okay? Chris. Hang on, Chris, in the streets.
Well, thank you to the Conservative candidate.
Stand up, Chris.
Yeah, I think she's absolutely right to say that we've seen a decline in Harlow. I think the decline has been caused by 14 years of the Tory government. And where will we find the money? We need a government that will probably invest in local councils, and fortunately, we haven't got one.
I feel I need to respond to that question because I worked for the Harlow Development Corporation for many, many years in the housing department. The problem with why the town is looking so bad started in 1992 when the Conservative government reduced the amount of money given to Harlow Council by half. That's what I think Mike Danvers is here. Is Mike Danvers here? Mike. Is Mike somewhere? Yeah, Mike. Mike was actually at the Playhouse when he called all the staff together about the cuts that were needed to be made by Harlow Council. Not down to Labour, and I'm not here to defend Labour. This was the Conservative cuts that cut the council's finances by half. And that's why this town looks like it is today. It's the Conservatives' problem.
I need to move on because we're already on 50 minutes, etc. We are talking at young people, so I do have a young person here like David Attenborough. Linus and Stewart's Academy was a star tenor there, Will Rock You, recently, brilliant. But she's got a question, and to ask him. Lina, off you go.
Thank you, and thank you to Michael for inviting me. So something I often hear, and a lot of speculation, is that people, so especially young people like myself, complain that there aren't many services provided for young people in Harlow. And my question to you is, if you are going to be running the council, what possible services could you provide for the young people in Harlow?
Yeah.
Well, you were here not so long ago, a few years now. Doing a TED talk, inspirational TED talk, so here you're back. Young people, come on.
Here we go, young people. No, thank you. Great question. It's really nice to see young people in the audience because for a number of years that was just me sitting out there. So it's nice it's changed a little bit. What would I want to run? I don't think I do. What I want to do is I want to run a scheme where we go into all the secondary schools, all the primary schools. We're asking the young people, what do you want from your town? We can reserve a pot of money and we can make sure there is funding for that. But there's no value in me sitting here telling you what I think young people want today. Because although I might be young in comparison to some of you, I don't really relate with the youngsters anymore. They keep telling me that. So primarily, I want to understand what the young people want, and I want to empower those young people to create things that they want. And so it's all based around listening to the young people of our town and responding to them, and not just listening and moving on to the next thing. But yeah, putting some money aside and then working with young people to develop that engagement plan.
councils?
Well, first and foremost, we are already doing things. It's a great question. It's no secret that I'm, along with Will, which is great, one of the younger members of the panel. And actually, the reason I got into politics in Harlow is because I was here on a Friday evening. I didn't grow up in Harlow. And I was with a group of similar aged folk and said to them, what are we doing this evening? And they said, what do you mean, what are we doing this evening? I said, well, where are we going to go? And they said, there is nowhere to go. Which I just thought was absolutely shocking, which is why, coming back to the town centre point, bar pretty much the Water Gardens and the Harvey Centre, we are demolishing the whole lot and rebuilding it. We're not talking about a few table tennis tables or plant pots. We are entirely rebuilding the town centre with new light, the new live music venue that Yasmin spoke of earlier, many other things to complement that offering. So there is a true evening and nighttime economy in Harlow, but there is also all the things, of course, for younger people than those I've just spoken about, such as splash parks and paddle pools, which we're investing significantly in to allow young people in Harlow to enjoy, which of course was that investment was voted against, alongside many other things, including a fund similar to that which Will just mentioned.
When people say young people, I immediately think of the Harlow lifestyle.
Thanks very much.
That's okay.
Well, first of all, I'd like to agree with Will, because I think he's hit the nail on the head. It's not really for anybody in this room to determine what might be needed for younger people. There is, of course, a Harlow Youth Council. I think we need to build on the Harlow Youth Council to actually get into schools, find out what young people want, school age. It's a bit ironic in this town that I often go down to the British Legion on a Friday or Saturday night. There's 100 people there, probably the average age is 60, 65. All having a dance, live music and all that, and yet there's hundreds of young people out and about, seem to have nowhere to go. I think we need to turn that around so that young people, like when we were young, did have lots of things to do. But of course, we talk about play schemes in the past and the youth clubs. That may be not what people want these days. We need to ask young people what they want. It's not for us to impose what we think they want. Thank you.
One of the things that the young people do miss in Harlow is the square.
Yes.
Now, we have the rock school and they do a fantastic job, but it's not easily accessible. Yet still they are putting on, I'm going to give them a plug here because I know Sue's here, they are putting on a free concert at the Harlow Town Park. That will encourage youngsters to go there, they can see the instruments, they can play, all the tuition is free. I think as well we should be putting on more play schemes to encourage children to be playing together and how to interact with each other. I think the splash parks are a nice idea, but unfortunately it's only for the very, very younger members. I think we need to be looking, and yeah, well done, Lord, it is. It's not for me to say what I think you should have. It's for the youngsters to tell us. And they talk, and they've learned to have the confidence to talk and form their own opinions by going to such fantastic projects as the Rock School. And I would like to see something that's easily accessible, and that would mean that we have to improve the transport links in Harlow.
Thank you.
I think pretty much everyone's hit the nail on the head. You know, I'm 52. I'm not young anymore, as you can probably tell by both my waistline and my hairline. But the fact is, that's what we need to do. You know, we need to. This is where we go back to what many of us have said earlier on. The whole consultation process that the council has with us residents needs improving, and that really includes the fact that we turn around and say often, well, young people aren't interested in politics. Well, give them something to be interested in, frankly. And if we're starting to talk about things for you and how the council runs things for you, well, I can't think of a better way to interact with young people than that, quite honestly.
And finally, would you be outstanding?
Yeah, I agree with Will.
Dina, what have you heard, and are you impressed? And any further questions?
There's no further questions. Thank you. I'll take this back
have any ideas tonight
Ideas?
about the question?
What would you like?
Well, I haven't been living in Harlow for as long as some other people in here, so I feel like it's not kind of my right because I don't know what used to be here, so I'm not sure. Youth clubs, yeah, obviously skiing, the Alps.
People have to go, youngsters have to go to Chelmsford to enjoy themselves, because that's the only place that's got any entertainment. It's Essex County Council and they've got all the money.
Okay, thank you. All right, next subject, housing. We've got a housing question. Daniel? Yep. Do you want me to read it? Okay. Daniel Brown, question on housing is, council housing is one of the biggest challenges facing our town. How do you plan to improve housing repairs and maintenance? How do you plan to improve housing repairs and maintenance? Nick?
Well, to be frank, I haven't got access to information that the two main parties would have, but I know how the council house service should be run. If I was elected, I'd be down the depot as soon as possible, looking at how the service has been re-engineered recently. It's rather ironic that the Conservatives have moaned about the Labour Party in the past. I'm not here to defend the Labour Party, of course. But of course, the elected members that were Conservatives, they weren't making a fuss going back 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago about service from HDS. They were applauding the service just as Labour were. The fact was the service was probably appalling. I'm not convinced that the backlog housing has been completely removed. You've only got to look at your Harlow to see people still complaining about outstanding repairs. So the bottom line is, I don't have access to the information, but I will be down at depot like a shot, looking to see what's happening.
Thank you. Thank you. Chris, May the 3rd, are you going to be down the depot like a shot? Down up?
Yeah, I might be going down the depot. Look, I'm knocking on doors pretty much every day in my ward and across the town. And I think first and foremost, the 33 Labour candidates for the general election want to be good ward councillors. And being a good ward councillor is knocking on doors, being a good community champion. And actually, when I talk to residents, I'm coming across lots of issues I think have been touched upon in terms of council housing repairs. I'm not convinced that they've got rid of the backlog. Actually, there are still lots of issues outstanding that need to be dealt with. Absolutely, Nick is right to say that actually what we need to do is work with HCS. We were right to bring HCS back in-house away from PS. We actually have control over it. And we need to ensure that that gets dealt with. I think, my approach and our approach is about putting residents first. That includes all residents, including those in council homes.
Well, to start with the picture I picked up when I became leader of the council 10 months ago, and when the Labour group left office, there was a backlog in housing repairs the day that the Labour group left the council of over 5,000 outstanding repairs. That was of 9,000 homes. What that means is the best part in two out of every 3 council homes had an outstanding repair. I'm pleased to say, and it's interesting that Chris suggests this isn't true. I'm sure he's not suggesting that the council's lying about something. The council has cleared the backlog in housing repairs this year. We've massively overhauled the way that we manage that. Indeed, when the Labour Party ran Harlow Council, the standard repair time for a council home, for a simple repair, was over 270 days. Over 9 months was the average wait time for a housing repair. We've brought it down over the last 10 months to 60 days, and we'll be coming down to 30 days shortly. When I became leader, the average turnaround time on an empty home was the best part of 3 months, 60 working days. We've brought that down to 20 days. Indeed, this financial year, we're investing over £120 million into council housing. And you guessed it, the Labour Party voted against that investment, but we don't know what they would do because they didn't present an alternative budget to suggested. So absolutely, we are committed to improving council housing, fixing council housing. As I said, we've introduced for the first time in decades a proper specialist stock condition survey. We've introduced an annual inspection of every council home. We are totally changing the way that the council runs its housing operation. As I've said, clear the backlog, cut the standard repair time by over 70%, cut the turnaround time on an empty home by over 80%. There's only one party that's going to fix council housing in this town.
Yeah, so backlog on council housing maintenance and repairs just seems to be getting worse actually. You know, I've heard from many residents in my area that have been waiting weeks for hot water to return to them. So this idea that it's all getting
That's
is...
I used to be a heating engineer, basis.
Yep.
They give me no work, so they go straight out and do a breakdown.
So somebody's lying, it might be me, it might be the resident, but this is the information I've been given, so I'm going to go with that one, okay?
Let him answer the question. The honourable's not so used to it.
Thank you.
Let him answer the question.
Thank you. Thank you.
More than welcome to come and have a chat with me at the end and we can have one-on-one conversation with it, but yeah, I'm going to answer the question now. I think it's good that HDS has been brought in-house. I think it's a good way of doing it. I think it makes sense. Unfortunately, I think there's been some cuts to council budgets over the last sort of few years. It's not going as far as it used to do, which has certainly caused some issues. But yeah, I think that needs to be tightened up. The time it's taken around. I think there needs to be more people looking at that as an overall number rather than just and prioritising those cases. To have somebody telling me they have no hot water for 2 weeks was not appropriate at all.
So back to the question. You're welcome. So I would be looking at doing more preventative works. What we tend to just build something or we repair something and let it go. There needs to be more preventative work, for example, with roof repairs, if there was general cleaning of the roofs, and this was suggested by one of the Conservative councillors at the scrutiny meeting, when they were looking at the figures that were presented on the housing repairs, and on the committee they said that the figures they presented were slightly misleading to them, so we all know the figures they can be presented in different ways. So I would also go down to the HTS depot, because they're really lovely people down there, and make them a cup of tea and have a chat with them, and see what their thought is. Because they are at the coalface, so they know what they're up against, and they know why they can't do the repairs as they should be doing them. I would also be using apprentices, thank you Robert, to learn trades, because back in the day, when we had lots of council houses, the standard of the council worker was extremely high. They learned their trade, they knew their trade. And I think if we had workers who know their trade, working on the properties, as opposed to subbing out, then you'd have more pride in the work that they are presenting, and then you have a happier tenant. But the fact is we don't really have that many council houses to be worried about. We need to build some more.
I'd just like to make a couple of points in response to what Dan said. In terms of the turnaround times for void properties, he claims that it's been reduced to 20 days. I would just say that in the preceding decade, it was 16 days, so actually the service is worse now. These are facts that I have to say from the Harlow Times. It's not that not in your head, this is from the Harlow Times. Okay, basically, of the 5,000 jobs, 500 were either duplicate jobs or jobs that had already been completed. And finally, most importantly, when you look at the Harlow Times that was recently produced, in 2021-22, the council did 29,691 jobs. And in 2022-23, they only did 27,290. So basically, I think we're being misled that actually this backlog was when Labour was in power. And I'm not here to defend Labour, but that's the facts. Deal with facts.
Very quickly, Dan, just
left office, there were over 5,100 outstanding council housing repairs.
That's not answering the question.
We have cleared that backlog. We have cleared that backlog. As I said, we've cut the average response time from over 9 months down. It's coming down now to 30 days. So I think it's absolutely balmy to suggest otherwise. We're investing £120 million this year to fix council housing and improve it in our town.
Let's give all the facts.
Mark,
And then we figure it out.
Well, here we have another classic example of how useful this back and forth tick for tat that I did, you did, which goes on and on. If you ever seen the need for something other than just the two other parties, honestly. Look, I think one of the big things you find is when you go out and knock on doors and talk to residents, they start talking to you about problems they've got in their homes. And you say, well, who have you reported that to? And quite often, they haven't reported it to anybody. So this is the issue. What we need to do is, I know I've said it quite a few times tonight, but we need to give our residents more information. Because at the end of the day, you can talk about 5,000 here, 2,000 here, whatever you like, and what the people want is they want their problem sorted, they want to know where to go to get it sorted, and when it's sorted, they want it to be quality, and they don't want it to be blinking useless. That's what they want.
Okay. All right. Okay, next question is on council tax. Peter. Do you want me to read it out?
No, it's okay.
Okay, off you go.
No, I mean,
There you go.
it's just a little joke. At the beginning, Jasmine referred to the boys' fire team. He's sitting here, it looks a bit like an army on the march, left, right, left, right. The Conservatives have frozen Harlow council tax for the last 3 years. What will you be doing for the next 3 years?
Chris Fitz.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the question. As I've said at full council, the Labour Party will look at the budget and review the £10 million black hole that we will inherit, but we have no plans to actually rebuild, so the council tax will remain frozen. But look, I don't have a crystal ball, and I can't tell you where we're going to be in a year's time. Anyone on this panel that tells you what they can do for the next 3 years is either making it up or is being really reckless with council finances. However, I will give you my personal view that actually council tax is a regressive tax. I hope we can get back to a situation where we have a government, hopefully a Labour government, because clearly this coming up will do that, actually proper investing in councils, so actually we don't need to break councils out, so actually that burden doesn't have to go on hard-working residents in Harlow, and actually we can have a progressive tax system where those people that have the broad shoulders, these big companies that aren't paying enough tax, actually pay the tax.
When you make reference to the black hole in the accounts, Chris, do you A, have evidence for that, and what are you going to do about that?
Yes, if you look at the budget, if you look at the budget, the budget meeting, full council meeting in February, if you look across the 4-year medium-term financial strategy and add up the gaps, it adds up to 10 million. That's in the council papers. As I've said in the previous, I think I've said this before, I haven't said interviews today. What we will look at is actually meeting with the chief executive and the section 151 officer to look at actually how we structure the council to actually make those savings. So what we're first looking at actually is the senior management of the council, where we can make savings there. But actually, that restructuring isn't just about savings. It's actually about looking at making sure we have a council that's fit for the 20th, or I should say the mid-21st century. So look, it's about sitting down, having those meetings, because actually having a meeting is how things get done in councils, and dealing with that issue. But I haven't got a crystal ball as to where we're going to be in 3 years' time, but I'm hoping that Labour government will start to invest in councils.
So Mark again, council tax.
Well, it's, I think Chris makes a worth a reasonable point in saying that until you actually get in to have a look at the books, it's very difficult to stand up here and say it, because at the end of the day, over the next 3 years, all sorts of things could happen, and you need to look properly and sensibly about what you want to do. And we've talked about a lot of policies here this evening, and if you're going to bring policies in, work with people to bring policies in, you need to make sure you can afford those policies. So there we go back, I guess, to lots of conversations and talking and coming to conclusions based on sensible information and sensible discussion.
Yeah, to really echo the point there, until you've got access to council offices where you can go and sit down and scrutinise all the details, it's very difficult to make a comment. At the bottom line though is, at some stage, if you freeze council tax for long enough, with inflation, there's only one thing that can happen, and that's a poor service. The biggest expenditure that council has is on its staff and its pension schemes. At some stage, you can't keep squeezing an orange, because basically there'll be no pips, I think I'm not going to say, but I have to say that the one thing that struck us with the local, the last budget, was money being spent on the Latin Bush Centre. Now, I don't know too much detail, but it seemed like £830,000 was going to be spent on improving the Latin Bush Centre. That was one area that stood out to me that I would actually want to ask officers about. Thank you.
I think what you've just heard from the three people who've spoken before is that they don't have a clue. So I'll give you a very clear answer. We will freeze council tax in Harlow for the next 3 years. Let me just take the points in order. So the first point that Chris made about the black hole, it is fantasy stuff. Very quick explanation. The Local Government Act 1972 requires someone called the Section 151 officer who's an independent person, to personally sign off that the council is passing a sustainable budget. That has happened. That has happened. So Harlow Council has a perfectly sustainable budget for future years. We will freeze council tax as we have since we've come in. You know, again, I come back to the point that there's absolutely no alternative budget. So it's fine the Labour Party saying they don't know what they're going to do, or they don't know the figures until they see them. They're all perfectly available for anyone on the panel to look at as they see fit. So council tax is a very easy question for us, because of course in the last 9 years of the Labour Council, they put up Harlow Council tax 14%. In the 3 years of the Harlow Conservatives run the council, we've frozen council tax. Because I would ask anyone on the panel, indeed what could be the future leader of the council, whether they even know how much money Harlow Council raises from its council tax. Because I very much doubt they do, unless someone in the audience is going to text it to them. Because actually there are many other ways of the council raising revenue other than council tax. There are many other ways of doing so. So the increased investment that's come into the council as a result of us buying the Harlow Centre, rebuilding the town centre as part of our regeneration partnership, a 50-50 partnership, all raises money for the council. So a very clear answer, Mr. Hennigan. We will freeze council tax for the next 3 years.
I run your borough as well, and there's a period of time I heard similar words, and people were concerned about debts and budget in borough, and then at £1.5 billion and bankruptcies, etc. So whether people know the maths, they get a bit nervous when seeing investments here. How can you reassure people that we're not going down these routes?
Well, first and foremost, as I've said, we've been shortlisted for the most improved council in England. You don't get that without being an A-rated, credited authority, which Harlow is. Indeed, the investments we have made into our own town centre, not buying solar farms in Scotland or whatever it is that Thurrock did, which will, as I've already said, has brought significant yield into the council. But more importantly, coming back to the chap's question earlier, will allow us now to rebuild the town centre. So it's huge investment on top of the hundreds of millions we've secured from the government. We're a very well-run financial authority and will continue to be so.
Dem's plan is to remain council tax at the current rate. Cost of living has gone up a lot, and we don't want to put this cost back onto the residents of Harlow. We'd also be looking at diversifying our income streams and trying to close up any sort of inefficiencies and gaps to tighten up the budget as well.
I feel sorry for you when we have to follow Dad. It's like the greatest showman, isn't it? Da, 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 then Dad starts. This is real. Council tax has been frozen for the last 3 years. But everything else has gone up. Your rents have gone up. Yeah. So you can't just say we keep that. All the other percentages, all the police that's gone up, and everything that pays out the council tax. What would I do? I would get in there, and like I said, we need to do forensic accounting of what is going on. I'm sorry? Do you? Good. We'll see how that looks as well, won't we? We'll look into that. So really, really super relieved that we're not investing in any solar panels, but we don't know about social media experts, do we? She's been doing so well in been voted the best of this and the best of that. So that must be good social media. So I would want to know, stop it, Michael. What I would want to know is how much has been spent on interim officers, because we've got the third CEO in as many years, and this is an interim one. Yes. So the payment on that would be quite substantial. We also have an interim planning officer, there's an interim housing officer. So that's an awful lot of money spent on staff, which should be spent on services. So we need to do a forensic account of what is there, and as I said before, we need to know what we're committed to spending out, and we have to know if there is anything that we've paid for example, I know perhaps didn't spend on the school, but if you build a school and it falls down, then you want to get some money back off it. If you fill roads, if you fill potholes and it doesn't work, we want your money back off it. If somebody does some work for me and it's not up to standards, I don't pay them. I get my money back and I pay something else. And I think that's something we need to look at. I think the council's all too quick to be spending money out here, there and everywhere. For example, buying flats, there's flats there. Where did that money come from? Where did the money come from for buying the Harvey Centre? Where did the money come from for Acacia House? We've got all these different pots, but we, as residents, and admittedly we're not all accountants, we need to understand in basic terms what is happening to our money. So forget freezing the council tax. If we need to provide money so we can have services for our residents, then yeah, then let's do it.
Harvey Centre, Burtville Flats, Acacia House, where's the money from?
No, I credit Yasmin, because actually it was better planned than the Labour Party's one to have a meeting. I mean, what sort of plan that is to run rubbish, I do not know. But of course, I'm really pleased that Yasmin brought up the fact that Harlow stopped Newham Council acquiring its development. All 172 flats will be available for Harlow people. We have structured a financial deal with long-term institutional investment, securitized deal. I'm more than happy to explain that to anyone who dares to listen. It's essentially a mortgage on the property. I've just said a long-term institutional investment. It's a securitized deal. I'm sure you understand. I'm sure you understand. I'm sure you understand. So we, as I've said, I don't think anyone on this panel has a clue what they do with council tax. And answer your question as to how they're going to accept us, as I've said, we'll freeze it for the next 3 years.
Peter, reflections?
So it's accountants, I am a inside accountant, so yeah, I understand. But I don't understand Chris Phillips. You've got a black hole, yet you haven't done a budget, so what can we go to about that hole?
If you want to respond to that, people I think expecting, even if you think that's not what we do, sort of people sort of expecting some sort of plan. Is that fair?
Well, as I say, we've got a plan, and I've done my best to communicate that this evening, and we'll be going out every day between now and the election, as we've done every day pretty much this year, communicating that plan to Harlow residents. There is no legal requirement to do an alternative budget. Many councils, many oppositions don't do alternative budgets, including Conservative opposition.
But was it not important with this great black hole you're talking about, to show an element of the public assessment of it.
Yeah, and I think you're absolutely right to focus on the £10.8 million black hole, because it's a huge issue that big that
Some
it
say
knows
it's going to
council.
solve the problem.
What we said at that meeting was we're going to have an urgent meeting, we are going to have a meeting with...
Too late. Thank you. Kiko.
We will be having an urgent meeting with the executive in section 151 and stuff to look at the possibility of an emergency budget where we will look at dealing with this issue. I mentioned some of the ways I think we can deal with that. Part of that's going to be restructuring. But actually, we've inherited this mess. It's quite a nice parallel to the mess we've inherited nationally, isn't it? And we need to tackle this mess because we need to protect the services, the important services, not just for the medium term, but for long term too.
We've got about 5 minutes left. We've got a general step question coming up, and then what we're going to try and do is just if anybody a burning issue after that, just as I'd really like to ask for this, etc. We'll do maybe 5 minutes on that, and then we're going to wrap up. So, Jennifer.
The transport routes into London, Cambridge and surrounding counties, Harlow is an area of great opportunity. We have a long experience of planning and deprivation. Some areas of the town compare poorly nationally, and Harlow has the second highest level of deprivation and highest level of child poverty in Essex. What would you do to tackle poverty in Harlow?
Will?
Yeah, so we touched on transport links and sort of poverty there. I think the two kind of do go hand in hand. Accessible and cost-effective public transport is going to go a long way to helping people to get sort of better jobs, a little bit further away maybe that they can do. It helps them follow to their ambitions. So I think that's key. I think it comes back to the education piece, making sure that people are engaged in their communities, that they want to give back to their community. I think that comes from it as a big point. If you don't have that community and you don't have something to associate back to, there's not really a reason to then want to give back and help others within the community. So I think focusing on that, starting early with young people, trying to get them involved in it and breaking the cycle of sort of poverty within the town is probably the best way to try and do that. Sorry, no.
Thank you. Yeah.
I attended the first meeting of the Harlow Poverty Alliance meeting that was held at the Rugby Club probably 18 months ago. I have to say I was amazed at the number of organisations in the town and the county wide that actually was helping on the subject. There was lots of people I think that had never met each other, so I didn't know really what each other were doing. But the council has to be really a sort of a sounding board or an organisation that brings these organisations together so that people do know where to go. If you suddenly lose a job, I found in my job that somebody that was about 50 years old and who's always worked and then suddenly become unemployed, they didn't know where to go for help. They didn't know where to go for benefits, where to go for physical and mental health and all those sorts of things. And really the council needs to be an organisation that brings these organisations together to help across the town basically. I think that's the best I can say on that. But particularly with the buses, I was very surprised to hear recently that the bus user group, which used to run regularly, is no more. And yet one of the biggest complaints in this town is that we need a better bus service. Yeah. And of course, with all these new developments around the town, the HGGT group are banking on people getting on buses. Otherwise the town will be crippled from what we need to do tonight. And yet there's not bus user groups to actually ask the people who use buses where they need buses and what all the issues are with buses. So one of the other things I would do is to resurrect bus user group. Thank you.
Mark.
Yeah, I think it's a real good question in that it's a situation where, as a council, the one thing that councils is supposedly community leadership. And if you're not leading on poverty and improving the quality of people's lives, then quite frankly, what on earth is your council for? Putting it quite bluntly. This is, again, I know I've said it quite a few times today, but this is an example of where people need to work together communicate properly, get together, and if you have an interest in the problem, let's get together and do something about it, and that's where the council comes in as a community leader.
Chris Fitz.
Thank you. I actually attended one of the volunteer forum meetings, and I actually work for a charity myself. The problem that the charity and volunteer sector have at the moment is they're competing for a smaller and smaller pot of money, is the reality. There are things that the council can do, so I think we could propose was a pilot scheme for breakfast clubs for young people across the town. We were told that that would be considered, and then it was sadly shelved. But this is a bigger issue than Harlow Council to tackle. And the reality is, it may, I'm going to call it out of back, but the reality, we need to change the government. We need to change the government quick. Because only actually from above, from the government actually is going to tackle this issue, can we actually tackle it properly in this town. And frankly, if anyone, you can argue with me all you like, but if you ask yourself, were you better off 14 years ago than you are now? Simply you wouldn't.
Well, as far as I was aware, it was a hustings about Harlow Council, because come the 3rd of May, we will still have the government, the same government in place. The decision you have in front of you is who do you want to lead the council. So when it comes to the cost of living and poverty, which is a massive issue, you're absolutely right to talk about some of the extreme pockets of deprivation we have. And two of the single two biggest things that can be done to change that are a good quality job and a good quality home to live in. And they are the two things that we are absolutely focused on. 2 of our 6 missions relate to those things: fixing council housing, building more social homes with delivering the biggest council house building programme in a generation in Harlow, and securing, as I said, hundreds of millions of pounds to create new jobs and apprenticeships to improve the life chances of our young people.
So child poverty is a subject very close to my heart. I work with some charities, and I'm also on the advisory panel, public advisory panel, for looking at these, we call them PDRs, which are converted office blocks. We have a lot of children living in these office blocks. We have children who are waiting for parents to go to sleep so they can do their homework. We have children coming to school, even now in 2024, children come to school, they're hungry, they have no food. And it's not because their parents haven't tried to get a job, their parents have tried. One of the biggest problems is the fact that the extortionate rents are being charged by these landlords of these PDRs. A studio flat, £385 a week. You can nod. I know the man who gave you those figures, so it's true, Colleen. There's also over another place where they have 181 units, and on average, people are being charged about £1,000 a month. So that from that unit alone, £181,000 is being earned to that landlord, that they think they are doing their best to help social housing. So child poverty, they do need homes, they need healthy homes, which Lord Chris has tried to put in both members bill through, because sickness as well is also part of it. But we need these children to feel safe, and we need these children to be housed in affordable, or as I say affordable, that's not affordable within 20% less than the market rate. But if you are earning an average wage, which Mark alluded to, is about 26,000 a year, it has to be in line with what you're paying for a roof over your head. You cannot be spending, I spoke to a lady the other day on the door, and she said her landlord had put the rent up from £850 a month to £1,000 a month. She said, I cannot do any more. I work 12-hour shifts. I physically cannot do any more. So we need to really look at serious rent capping to help.
Yeah, so Harlow Council has the lowest council rents of any comparative council. It's about an average of £110 a week or so, in order to invest £120 million a year to improve the quality and maintenance and repairs of those homes. We did increase council tax. We didn't increase council tax. We increased the council rents to do that by about £7 a week.
7.7%.
Jennifer, any response, reaction?
Yes, I've been running the largest Harlow freebies Facebook page for 15 years, and it started because I could see that there was a need for people who needed a second-hand washing machine, a second-hand cooker, and we've had over 10,000 members now, and we have mums come on there asking for underpants for their children, shoes for their children. Has anybody got any socks that I can have for my child? Anyone got any toys that I can have that I can wrap up as a birthday present, a Christmas present? The poverty in Harlow is real and it stinks.
Now 25 to 9. Is there any other issues that haven't been discussed? That you've got a burning issue, etc. Alex?
In light of recent allegations, I hope not hate about alleged racism.
I'm not going to, that's one I'm not going to do.
Serious question.
No, I consider that now an active case. So in that way, and I'm in this building, and I said I wouldn't discuss. I understand whatever you feel about that, but I'm not.
You are standing to like to make a comment.
I'm going to crack on, but thank you very much. Gentleman at the back.
Thank you, panellists, for braving tonight. One of the subjects I've not heard you talk about is education. Dan, you 3 points. Well, you mentioned 2 points. One was jobs and one was housing. The third has got to be education. I became governor of Harlow College about a year ago. The lack of funding that college has. We know the problems with school buildings. Now, I know a lot of education does happen at a national level, but I'd be really interested to hear from each of you as councillors actually what you can do to improve educational attainment within this town.
Who would like to try first?
So you're absolutely right. Education is one of the most important things. I'm really proud that actually in Harlow over the last 10 years there's been over 8,000 apprenticeship starts, because that is one of the single biggest things that can change a young person's life and help them move out of the poverty trap. Indeed, in Harlow College, of course, there will always be funding challenges, but actually we have seen tens of millions of pounds coming into the college to deliver the Advanced Manufacturing Centre, the Institute of Technology that's now there, the tens of thousands of apprentices that they have produced. And that is a fantastic thing that's happened in recent years. The council has helped to deliver the Institute of Technology, indeed, working with businesses and the college to do that. Of course we need further funding into our schools. I'm really proud as well that over the last 10 years or so, more and more Harlow schools have become good or outstanding offset rating. But all of those things don't matter unless, of course, there is a growing local economy that creates high-skilled jobs, high-wage jobs, and employment opportunities for those young people.
Chris Phillips, education.
I'm talking about education all day long. I used to be a teacher, many people will know. I've mentioned it every council meeting I get. Education is the key to all of this. We talk about education in terms of crime. We talk about education in terms of getting people out of poverty. The first and foremost, we need schools that aren't falling down. And unfortunately, that is an area where this town's been hugely let down. But I would say, I said in the previous answer, I did pay tribute to the outgoing MP on this. That apprenticeships are really important as well. And genuinely, I said it's very genuine. Thank you for his work on that. I think we need to go further. I think we need to look at apprenticeships at all levels. We need to look at apprenticeships as a council. We need to look at apprenticeships that benefit the council and benefit PCS. Because the big thing I hear when I talk to council officers regularly is that there are issues recruiting council officers. So we actually need to start to grow our own. But we need to get our own, and that's how we can live with the pensions.
Before I go to Yasmin, by the way, Passports Academy have been very nice and giving us this for free, and so there's admission is free, but there is a St Clair Hospice bucket at the back, and if afterwards anybody would help donate to £8,000 a day it costs for St Clair Hospice to keep that
guy, just to make that back at the end. Yeah.
Thank you, Michael. We have a problem with education in Harlow, and we have a problem with education across the board insofar as a lot of our children have special educational needs, and these are not being met by the mainstream schools. The mainstream schools do not have the budget. We also have an issue with the local authorities not issuing the plans on time as they should, which is stopping children from getting the education that they need. And this is a very, we say it's a small pocket, but it's a very essential pocket of our society, of our inclusive society. We have children who are being managed out of school through their behaviour. Usually they have ADHD, which is now being widely diagnosed. And they are not getting any education. So everybody needs to be mindful, I think, of the education requirements in their schools. But we do need to be looking at how schools are being built and how we're having developments being built, and school is the last thing that's been put on. The school should be the first thing, because schools are being oversubscribed, and so children are going without education because there's no place for them.
Well, first of all, thanks for the question. And secondly, thank you very much for actually being a governor, because it is a thankless task. It is something that we struggle for across the town, almost as much as people struggle for council candidates, actually. But I think one of the things that Yasmin just highlighted is she's not the only person who works with disadvantaged people and children, because both Dan and I do as well. And I think one of the biggest situations that you find in education is that there are situations where children don't fit into the convenient boxes, so therefore they need treating in a different way, with different and different means and different treatment. And the biggest issue is that we need to get to a point where education in this country treats every single child as an individual, and we actually start making sure that our education system is giving them a real quality education for what they want to do with their lives.
And their skills aren't taxed either.
Absolutely.
Tony Edwards, did you have a point to make here?
Yeah. A question for all the candidates. Given that we were promised that Harlow Hospital would have been built by 2025, and given that we were promised that the Health Security Agency, the staff would be in there now by 2023, and neither doesn't appear to be anywhere near on the horizon, what will the candidates do to ensure that the voice of Harlow is heard with the next government, irrespective of its colour, to ensure that those projects are completed? And what do you anticipate the time
Well, a very quick response in direct terms to the question is that we will continue to do as we already are doing, meet with government ministers, irrespective of party, put the case to the government for that future investment. It's a fantastic thing. Harlow is getting a new hospital. There are no two ways about it. Harlow is getting a new hospital. Backed by hundreds of millions of investment. So we will continue to do as we are. The government made clear it will be built by 2030. They
haven't made clear it will be built by 2030.
They have.
It still hasn't got out.
Okay. Chris, would you like to add anything here?
I suspect there'll be a general election hustings where we can have this conversation later in the year, I hope. Yeah, I mean, I've already started lobbying Keir Starmer, as people know, and I will continue to do that, because actually...
Keep going, Chris, you're done.
we need to ensure that Harlow gets the investment that it deserves. I want to see above all, the young people of Harlow having all the opportunities they possibly can. That involves putting high-tech jobs into Harlow. I have my doubts, as Tony does, about the future of the Harlow Hospital, but absolutely I know that the next Labour government said they will be committed to the Conservative government spending plans with projects like this. So if there's money for a new hospital, we will make sure that it happens.
Okay. I'm going to go back round the candidates and just give them 1 minute to say a summing up, reflections on the evening, things you'd like people to think about as they leave. Reverse order, Mark.
Well, thank you all very much for coming this evening. I hope you've heard something interesting that may affect the way you vote, or choose to vote, or are thinking about voting. I'd like to thank Michael Casey very much for organising this evening, and I'm sure everyone up here would join me in that. But I think the key thing for me to give you to go away with is, from UKIP's perspective, you have two very good, dedicated, experienced candidates in Mark Hall and Bush Fair, who are well worth putting your support behind. And if there's any questions you have for me or Dan afterwards, I'm sure we'll be delighted to talk to you. Thanks very much.
Will Tennyson, Lib Dem.
The Lib Dems are and will continue to be the party of local politics. I hope through today that we've made I've suggested some positive things that you feel would be worthwhile across the town. I do invite you to vote Lib Dem 3 times in the upcoming election. As I said, we're going to build more houses, we're going to tackle antisocial behaviour, and we're going to address the inequality in the town. Thank you.
Nicholas Taylor, Harlow Alliance Club.
Well, just to say that we've got 4 candidates in the election this year, all of them very experienced in the work that they've done in the past. I would say to those people that are watching this on film that just to remind people that Steve LeMay, who was elected to the Great London Award in 2021, was subsequently, I think, sacked from his role as a portfolio holder and hasn't represented the residents of Great London at any meeting of the council since December 2022. If elected, I have pledged to help residents in my ward, unlike the disappearing councillor LeMay. Thank you.
Well, I would like to say that if you would like to use your 3 votes, we have 24 candidates, as I say, 24, to give you a chance to vote for any other colour but the red or blue. Vote if you want to. I mean, I'm sure they're quite nice people, and I know that some of them are. Yes. I always look for the good in people. But seriously, I think with the Green Party, we would be that voice of reason. We would just calm it down a little bit. We would remind people why we are here. We see Nick at these council meetings. We already have cases that we're working on. So the councillors that they have at the moment are they're not ticking all the boxes for the residents, and we would like to help the residents get what they deserve.
Chris Lynch was struggled on manually to this evening. What's more thinking?
Yeah, I was going to go into politics on this, but I'm not going to. I mean, first of all, I'm going to genuinely say, Michael, thank you for organising the thing. And thank you to everybody that's come along. I mean, I think it's fair to say that most people in the audience have probably made up how they would vote. And Saggers is wavering. He's really not. But I think it is to say, actually, that I believe that the majority of people that go into local government, whether they're Labour, whether they're Conservatives, or whether some of the other parties represented here today, they go in because they care about their local communities. I've been a councillor for Little Pond and Hare Street for 6 years. It's been an absolute huge, I can't say the biggest honour in my life because my wife walks in, but it's the second biggest honour in my life. And look, you all know, there was a little moment in 2021 where I thought I was going to lose my seat, and I would have been gutted, because it really means a great deal to represent my community. And I know that we've got 33 candidates, the Labour candidates, that feel the same way. And I'm sorry to those Labour candidates or potential candidates that weren't selected this time. I hope they'll continue to support Labour and be involved in the future. But what I would say to you is, you're voting for your voice in local government. I know that there are good councillors on both sides of the chamber who actually genuinely care about their local community, taking on casework, dealing with casework, and ultimately that's the most important.
Well, at the end of this debate, I think it is abundantly clear of two very different futures that Harlow faces. And the questions I would ask anyone to rehearse are, do you want council tax to be frozen or to increase? Do you want the town centre rebuilt or not? Do you want Harlow homes to be for Harlow people or not? Do you want to restore pride in our town or not? Because those are the issues facing the voters of Harlow in 2 weeks' time. And as we've heard, there is one party that has an abundantly clear plan to run the council. Indeed, it's already enacting that plan, which has been recognised by the Local Government Association as one of the most improved councils in the country. Or do you want to go back to the days of Harlow homes not going to Harlow people, council tax increasing year on year, the town centre not being rebuilt or not? That is the future that you have in front of you to decide between. So the only way to take our town forward is to vote Harlow Conservative on the 2nd of May.
I'd say thank you very much to the whole panel. It's been great. I'd like to thank the audience. Thank you, Michael. That's all right. I'm sure you'll agree there's 101 candidates standing. Anybody who stands up, that's a brave decision to make, a commitment to their community. So we all get out to ask people to vote, encourage the debate, and the debate's really important. I'd like to thank you all for coming this evening, and safe travel. Thank you very much.